Good afternoon, Chevra, the Minatzchim, as we are Minatzech this Golus, from Golus to Geula. I was asked by Rabbi Rubenfeld to share a little bit about this spontaneous initiative that took off by Motzei Shabbos Farbrengen for Rabbi Majeski's birthday, and now it's becoming a worldwide sensation, to share with our Chevra what we can do to grow it, to expand it, to give the Rebbe a big matana. But I want to start off with a story, a real story that happened with my father. My father is not a big darshan. That skipped his part of the generation. My Zayda was a big darshan. My uncles are darshanim. My father, he says he's the one that has to pay the bills. But the point is that he's quiet, and he has many stories with the Rebbe that I myself didn't know. A couple of years ago, he told me on Moire Dikamais. Here's a story that happened with my father and the Rebbe. When my father was a little boy, they grew up. My father was born in Paris because my grandfather came out like many Hasidim on those trains with the false Polish passports. They came out with the Eshalonim, and they took a temporary stop in Paris. Some Hasidim got stuck there. That became their Mokim Ashlichis. Many went to Kfar Chabad. That became the next. A big group went to Kfar Chabad, and few came to America. My grandfather was given a visa to come to America, and the joint settled him in Detroit, Michigan. His idea was to go to Detroit and then obviously just skip to New York, after the certain amount of time that you had to be there. But by the Rebbe, everything's bashkacha pratis. So if you are sent to Detroit, that's obviously where your neshama was supposed to be. So 32 years he was in Detroit, and he raised his family, Baruch Hashem, of 15 children in Detroit, Michigan. Now, my grandfather was a very wealthy man, Beruchnius, very, very not Begashmius. There was no fight over his Yerusha. There was nothing to be Yoidish Begashmius. The Rebbe told him that, the Rebbe wrote to him that they say that America is a land that streets are paved with gold are not for those which are Yirei Shemayim Betachlis like you. This money is not in the stars for you. And he came to the Rebbe and he told the Rebbe that Bazoi, he's never going to be able to make a shidduch because he has nothing to give as a nadin. He has no money. How's he ever who's going to want to marry this poor chassid from Detroit? There's a big family, no money. How's it going to work out? And the Rebbe told him that you could give over to the prospective mechutanim, that the Rebbe said that Meir Aftzin Alein is the nadin. He himself, he is the nadin that he's giving over to his children. But either way, he had very little money, but he was a real chassid. So whatever paycheck he did have, he would take off a little bit and put away for 1 year. Once a year, he would take the family to New York for Sukkot. All his family, the kids, they would go to the Rebbe once a year. If that's, they starve the whole year so that they can have this trip to New York once a year. But my father says that when he came to New York, I don't want to say that he's an Olam Emes, but basically he dropped his kids in 770 and he was with the Rebbe for a week. It was a little bit fend for yourself. You did your thing. This was his once a year thing. He was by the Rebbe. He was davening, learning, verbrenging, and the kids dreht sich. There is a Gevalget in Crown Heights in 770. So this story takes place. My father's about 6 or 7 years old. And after drehing sich in 770 for a couple of hours, he wanted to go to the place that they were staying to eat. So he left 770 alone. He was a 6, 7-year-old kid walking alone down Eastern Parkway towards Brooklyn. And he came to walking, and he sees there's a man walking the other way. So he's walking, this man is walking, he's a little kid. When he finally realizes who's the man, it's the Rebbe. The Rebbe those days walked without a whole bodyguards. There was a few Bachrim, Kam, Lubavitch, and the Yuds. My father was born Tafshin Yud Aleph, so we're talking Yudzayin, Ches. So it was very, very small. There weren't Bachrim. You see pictures, the Rebbe walking by himself. So it was the Rebbe walking, and this little boy is walking the other way. So the houses on Eastern Park, where they have those little walls in front of it, the gardens have a little wall, on Eastern Park with those little. So my father stood back against one of those walls so that the Rebbe can walk by. But the Rebbe turned to him, and now, lahavdil elef of dollars. Politicians only speak to kids when there are cameras there, for the photo op. The Rebbe is a Roya Yisrael. He sees a little boy, and he says, "Where are you going?" So he tells the Rebbe he's going to eat. And the Rebbe looked at him, and the Rebbe said, "Du willst mir tun a toiva? You want to do me a favor?" Now, this 6, 7-year-old kid, the Rebbe is asking, "Do a favor?" Zicher Rebbe, of course I want to do a favor. But he's trying to imagine to himself, what type of favor can he give the Rebbe? And the Rebbe told him, if you want to do me a favor, go back to 770, learn for 2 more minutes, and then go home and eat. If you want to do me a favor, go back to 770, down the block, go to the base medrash, learn for 2 more minutes, and then you go home to eat and do whatever you need to do. So Amo, we think that, what's the same minute? What is 2 minutes? 2 minutes to the Rebbe could be a personal toiva. We're all little children and we're all very, very busy. So that with this introduction, I want to introduce this 2-minute thing that we started, but I want to change it. It's not 2 minutes, it's 120 seconds. 2 minutes sounds very small, but when we're preparing for Yud Aleph Nisan, everything wants to be in the theme of 120. If we view 2 minutes as 120 seconds, it actually sounds very, very big. It's no longer small anymore. 2 minutes, 120 seconds is a lot of time. And I'll tell you what happened. Rabbi Majeski's birthday is Sunday, Yud Aleph, Yud Beis, Adar Rishon. And in Motzei Shabbos, we were sitting in Fabrengen. So there was 2 kavanas. One was for the birthday. Other people were saying L'chaim for the Bengals. Didn't work out as well as people would have wanted here in Cincinnati. But the Chaver were saying L'chaim, and it came to the question of what is it that we could give a matana. We have these big ideas talking about moistus and mises. It's so exciting and exhilarating, and it plus it gets you drunk to think about big projects. The problem is when it comes time for Poyal Mamish, those things fizzle out so quickly because as big as it is in Olam Toyu, when it comes to Kalim the Tikkun, it's very hard to walk away with it. There's a younger man that lives in our Kehila, and he's about Tshuva. He's from a university, he was a Mekurev in a university in Maryland. It's called the C. I think there's a university in Maryland with the C. But either way, he's now Baruch Hashem. He went to Tiferes, a full-fledged Lubavitcher Gaman. He lives in our Kehila. His name is Simcha Spencer. And he said, Rabbi Avtsin, Meret Groise Zachen, how does 120 seconds sound? Like we're talking about, big things. We're going to have 120 tefillin. We're going to have booths downtown. I don't know. Everyone had these ideas of what we're going to do. How does 120 seconds sound? So my first feeling, 120 seconds? What's the 120 seconds? Then I chapped, maybe 120 seconds will actually happen. And that Fabrengen was 60 days toward Yud Aleph Nisan, was Yud Aleph Adar. And I made the cheshbon, 60 days times 120 seconds times 2 minutes is 120 minutes. So 120 seconds a day, which can lead to 120 minutes, which can lead to 120 people, to 120 things a day. All of a sudden, these 120 seconds are not small anymore. It's very, very big. And thinking about the story that the Rebbe told my father, that 2 minutes of learning is yes, for a child, but we're all children, can be a strong matana for the Rebbe that ignited this thing. And we spoke by the Fabrengen that there are certain people that do better with audio. They want to hear a word. Other people do better with a written thing. And the idea was, well, it shouldn't just be learning 2 minutes. What we spoke by the Fabrengen was that a father or a brother or someone should share these 2 minutes by his family. The family should create 120 second days by their supper table, by whatever it is. There should be a time, 120 seconds where Fabrengen for the Rebbe, Yud Aleph Nisan. So it turns into a family hachana. And for the idea is that the title is 120 seconds. The kid constantly thinking about the words 120, constantly thinking about Yud Aleph Nisan. So it was decided that we sat together that I would take it upon myself to create these 2 minute videos as well as write up a few paragraphs, what is being said in 2 minutes. Now, those that speak, people laugh. They say 2 minutes. I want to tell you the truth. It's harder to speak for 2 minutes than for 25 minutes. To take what you want to say and to put into 2 minutes sometimes is more difficult. Every video I had to do 3-4 times because so right now the yeshiva is on the side. I'm focusing on these videos full time, but the point is that we are coming up with this idea, and they created a WhatsApp to join, and the idea is not just to join but to spread. But I do want to share with you, then we'll get back to finish presenting today's videos to give an idea of what they're not the regular Yud Aleph Nissen, simple things. I'm trying to come up with things that are a little bit more illuminating, people may not be aware of. I'll share today's video and then we'll continue presenting. If I can press share. Okay, 1 second.
If it's full screen, Gershi, it won't show. So make sure it's not full screen what you're trying to share.
No, it's not full screen.
And also make sure you share audio.
1 second, let me do that. Okay, wo sein mehr? Wo sein mehr? Share screen, share sound.
That Megalgalin Chazal teach us that Megalgalin schus liyoin zakai. That means that special things, occasions, the Eibishter puts on special days. If that's the case, so the Rebbe being born on Yud Aleph Nissen must mean that Yud Aleph Nissen on its own had a very special history. What's the specialty about Yud Aleph Nissen in Jewish history? So besides being the yahrzeit of two great tzaddikim, it's the yahrzeit of the Ramban from the greatest Rishonim and Meforshim on the Torah and the Gemara, as well as the yahrzeit of the Shalah HaKadosh, the Baal Shnei Luchai Sabris. We find something fascinating in the Navi. In the Navi Yeshua, Perek Dalid, Pasuk Yutes, the Navi tells us that on the 10th of Nisan, Olu min hayarden, that's when Klal Yisrael, after leaving Mitzrayim, spending 40 years in the Midbar, that's when they finally left and entered Eretz Yisrael for the first time on the 10th of Nisan. The Rebbe tells us in Sefer Asiches Tavshin Nun, page 255, that from here we can see that Yud Aleph Nisan was the first day of the era of Yidden in Eretz Yisrael. The first complete day of Yidden entering Eretz Yisrael was Yud Aleph Nisan. The day that Am Kodesh, the Helike folk, the Helike nation, entered Eretz HaKodesh. So it started a new tkufa of Yidden's connection to the Eibishter in Eretz Yisrael. So Yud Aleph Nisan on its own is a day of Geula, a day when Klal Yisrael enters Eretz Yisrael, and Emir Hashem came Tiyeh b'yameinu eile. It should be like that in our days as well.
So the idea is to take these nekudos. This is like a Oren Sefer Asiches Tavshin Nun, and there are many, many amazing things where the Rebbe speaks about his private day of Yud Aleph Nisan, and to try to bring it out in just 2 minutes. My eyes keep on going because I have a stopwatch. I know I have to contain myself. So I literally have a stopwatch that is like a beep when it hits 2 minutes, 120 seconds. But I do feel that this could be done on a major scale, Mashiach scale, like all the inyonim, 120 seconds, 2 minutes. It's bite size. It's a nekuda that people can digest and then give out. And that's really what I want to share, that we're all trying to give a matana to the Rebbe. And of course, there are big things, but we had Hayoim Yoim recently that said that nish de groise Sachen are oiker harim. That's not where the big inyanim, you don't have to crush mountains and everything. Bracha with kavana, with the rest of the Hayoim Yoim. The idea is it's literally the small things done right and consistently, which is really the key to success. Because the small things, I always tell Bachrim and I tell myself, right now, Baruch Hashem, I'm 41 years old. And every year by my birthday, I make achlota to keep last year's achlota, right? That's, we try to, we're always catching up on the achlotas. There's one achlata that I've been keeping since I moved here. Like, it was my first birthday here was 25. I turned 25, 17 years ago. And that was, the Rebbe gives a yirah that on Hala should give out stoka Erev Shabbos. It's a special yirah that the people that on Hala of a Moisid should give out stoka Erev Shabbos, L'chavet Shabbos. It's a nickel to a kid on Erev Shabbos. You would think it's such a small Indian, once a week, a little nickel. That's the only achlat that I know I've been keeping like consistently. There hasn't been a Friday that I missed because it's small, it's precise, it's consistent. Adar, because it's baitzah and so defined, it actually goes on. The idea is that we should all take upon ourselves in Yonim. I do encourage you to join this group, not so much for yourself, but to have opportunity to share this 2-minute fabrengen with others as well. The floor is yours, Rabbi Mendy.
Rabbi Yafsin.
You finished early. You still have 1 more minute.
I want to thank Rabbi Majeski. That was the impetus, is fabrengen, because a fabrengen should be a real fabrengen. So I will share on the share thing the link to join.
Hey, the WhatsApp is almost full. You have to make another one already. There's a limit of how many people they can have in each group. So. Baruch Hashem.
Ruvain, you're on mute. It looks like you're trying to speak, Reb Ruvain. You're on mute.
Oh, yes, Rabbi Atson, quick question. What do you think is like the main, like in the 120, in that mispar of 120 in the day? I mean, there's different in Yom. I just wanted to hear your thoughts. What's exciting you about 120? There's,
I'll tell you, if you ask me 120, there was, when you learn the Dvar Malchus, you think you learned it once, twice, 10 times. Always when you're involved with something, you get to see more in it that you've never seen before. And I'm talking about not even deep dehers, even Pashta Oisius. And the Dvar Malchus of Yisroi, Tovshnum Beis, was Chopei Shvat. And the Rebbe brings down from a Sefer Ma'orei Or, a gewaldige thing. The Rebbe says that the word Dima, it says when Mashiach comes, Dima, Hashem's going to erase the tears. The Rebbe says Dima is Gematria 119. Golos, the Shleimus of Golos can only reach 119. It could reach Dima. After 119, it says the word Elikim is 5 letters, Aleph, Lamed, Hey, Yud, Mem. The way it works, even those that learned a little math in Lubavitch Yeshiva, if you want to know how many formations, Sirufim, of each word, you have to times the letter by the letter in front of it. 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. That's as many formations as a 5-letter word can be. So Elikim could only have 120 formations. Aleph before Lamed, Aleph before Hey. We're not talking about doubling the letters. There's only 120 Sirufim of Shem Elikim. As a matter of fact, there's a Moedik letter of the Rebbe in Ignis Kodesh Chelik Beis explaining the 120 Sirufim of Shem Elikim that was printed in Shuvas Biurim Chelik Vav. But not for now. The idea is Elikim in its fulfillment and its Shleimos is 120. If you're missing one Gilui of Shem Elikim, you're up to 119. You're up to Dima. But 120 means that we're done with Dima and it's time for Gula. Elikim is B'Shleimos. Elikim is on its ultimate fulfillment. So 120, that's what the Rebbe says. Why did Moshe Rabbeinu live 120 years? Tefillah the Moshe Isha Elikim. He had the Shleimos of Elikim. He was a complete Yid. So that's why he reaches 120. 119, as great as it is, could still be Dima. 120 is Umocha by Elikim Dima. That was the thought that I'm on these days, Rebbe.
It's interesting how I got excited about that Dima when we started saying last year, that's interesting. Yeah, obviously, Bamreb more than anybody else, because the Malchus is Shem Elokim. So this Indian is very strong. What I'm thinking about 120, another Indian is that since Goyal Yishim Goyal Achim, And the Goyal Rishon was kind of interrupted when he reached 120 for him to be able to continue the next phase of the Geula. In other words, you have to get your Geula that Moshe Rabbeinu was supposed to do the whole Geula, or it could have done the whole Geula. The Rebbe explains by the Sikha of Pasha Shemois that it's Mitzvah Mitzrayim could have been, right? But then because of Yanim that came in, that wasn't that one. So now Moshe Rabbeinu has to complete. And where does he complete? So B'chori picks up from 120. So that Inyan is a pickup point. The Shlemus of Moshe was 120. And now as Goya Lachlan starts at 120. Just the thought. That was it.
Because I heard this from people, and it's hard for people to wrap their heads around. Why is Lubavitch celebrating 120? Isn't 120 mean the end? Like a lot of people, like we're talking about 120, like, wow, we're going big, we're going 120. And the average person, even the frumma person, they're like, no, you guys shouldn't be, the Chai V'Kayim people, you guys shouldn't be promoting this 120 thing. It sort of goes against the narrative of 120. And there's a lot to fabring about, even about Moshe Rabbeinu, that he says in Parshas Vayelech, that he didn't get weak. It's not Mitzidai, Moshe Rabbeinu is mamshech. But what I want to add to it is that the Rebbe in that Sikh of Yisro, Tovshin and Beis, when he speaks about Moshe being 120, the Rebbe says, and from 120 gave Meglai Chaim Nitzchim. In other words, the Rebbe doesn't allow it to. We shouldn't think for a second that 120 is like an end. Because in a lot of people's mind, that's the maximum life. So why are we pushing the fact? Does that mean that it's over? Chabad is done? You're already done at 120? No. By the Rebbe, the 120, I want to fabreng, you're talking about fabrenging 120. I'll share with you Gavaldi Gavart. I heard from Hirschel Merozov. He's my neighbor on Crown Street. He's the one that has Rebbe's Kapota by the Chasanas. He lives literally next to my parents on Crown Street. He was from the first shluchim to Melbourne, from that group to Melbourne, Australia, Tufshin Chav Zayin. So one time I was by the oil and he needed a ride. So I took him home and he said, I remember this was years ago. I want to share with you a vort. I said, okay, let me hear this vort. So he said that we say in Kapitel Kuf Chaf Aleph, which by the way, May Ayin Yovei Ezi, Ayin is Yud Aleph Nissen. Yud Aleph Nissen. May Ayin is, but that's not what he said. He said, what's pshat? Ezri me'im Hashem oisei shemayim v'aretz. Shouldn't it say Ezri me Hashem oisei shemayim v'aretz? He says he saw a sefer, I forgot which one it was, that im Hashem referred to the tzaddikim. There's Hashem, the tzaddikim are im Hashem, the tzaddikim Nesiyei Yisrael, they are the im Hashem. So a chassid knows that Ezri is me'im Hashem, his derech to the Eibishter goes with the tzaddikim. We're talking about a derher on the Rebbe's kapitel. I just remembered that this morning, this Ezri Me'im Hashem. But we really should not, the main thing is from today's presentation is that we should never underestimate 2 minutes. I mean, just go ask the Cincinnati home team from yesterday. What could change in 2 minutes? The city has learned a lesson. But the point is we should never, by the Rebbe, 2 minutes are tired. Besides the fact in the Rebbe's own avodah, we know that there was a Gavaldi Gamais in Tavshin Dalid, when the Rebbe was being chazen for the Amid, the Rebbe had to daven for the Amid, for the Rebbe Leivik. The Bachim would come a few minutes late, until they put on their tefillin. And the Frierdiker Rebbe gave over to the Anhola, or Sol Jacob, whoever it was, in Yeshiva, to give over to the Bachrim, that they should not realize how much pain they're causing the Rebbe, because they don't understand what 2 minutes of the Rebbe's time is. If it's not, them starting 2 minutes late is taking 2 minutes from the Rebbe's time. That's what the Frierdiker Rebbe gave over to the Bachrim. But so to ourselves, that the 2 minutes, the Rebbe told my father, it could be a personal matana, and let's share these 2 minutes. The key is not 2 minutes. The 120 seconds Pabrengen should be b'chol ha'olam kulei.
Rabbi Yatsen, can I reveal the Indian?
Absolutely.
Permission? Okay, the Indian is like this. I don't know if everybody knows, but really, They were the Los Angeles and Cincinnati were up against each other yesterday. The Pneumius in Yana was that me and Gershi were fighting up there Lamaila on this Indian. And what can I say? I won. That's a good thing.
Actually, your team is also a kosher animal. That was also connected to Mashiach. So
Yeah.
our team is a non-kosher animal. So
Schäfer for the Rams. This is alles. Okay.